I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for showing up again. Fabulous to see everyone. I just want some takeaways that you got at what was the most mind-blowing thing from the last time? I think Jeanette had a hand up.
Well, I watched the entire Q&A afterwards, and I think how to use flashbacks. I've got a new understanding of anchoring in time and going in and out of it.
Amazing. We didn't talk that much about it, but flashbacks are not what people think. And I do have a YouTube video on it as well. It's called Flashbacks Are Not a Memory, right? Thank you, Jeanette. Jennifer.
I was going to say it was really helpful to learn more about narration within a scene and that it's not the same thing as transition writing.
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? Very easy to confuse the two. Difference between narration and transition, right? The purpose they serve is different, even though they look the same. Good. Roger, smiling basshole. I'm just reading what you wrote there.
Yeah. I'm a bass fisherman, so
I know. Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of takeaways, but one was that using we prevents subjective writing.
Hang on, repeat that one more time. We prevent subjective writing?
No, the word we, when I say we went, that prevents subjective writing.
Exactly. It prevents subjective writing. Yeah, it does. You can't be inside a group's head. When you say we, it's impossible to use subjective writing. Yeah, really great point. Trish. Oh, Trish, you're muted.
Oh, there I am. Hello.
Hello.
What I really loved, I loved all of it. I just loved all of it. I could do it all over again and again. But what I really loved mostly was the time anchor. I love last week I went to Target. And
I love that example. Right.
Yeah.
So when you have a time,
No, please.
Oh no, exactly. When you have that time anchor, it creates this expectation.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. I'm going to live through it with you. And it's the same in conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's what's going to happen. Did you want to add something, Trish? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's just I've written down check for time anchor and here it is. And transitions lead into a new, stay with the transition and where is it, bloody hell? Time point, stay there until the next scene and then a transition. So
yes,
there's a real calculus, and I love that. And also subjective. I love the last week when we were doing it, I did this. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that quadrant thingy? I did what you were describing. So there's this, subjective,
objective, subjective, transition scene. Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that helped. And another thing that you said was really great for me, helped me so much. Not that I've done anything with it, but it's really great help. And that is a premise for the scene.
A premise for the chapter.
For the chapter.
A premise for the chapter.
Yeah,
exactly. Good.
So that we can get it right. That well, that's not going to be relevant. No, that's too much. That won't help. And what feeds to the main event, leading to the main event.
Super.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you. You just summarized the class, I think.
Yeah. I'll send you my PayPal link. I mean, honestly.
Perfect. I'm going to move on to Amanda.
Unmuting there. Oh yes, so much that I took from it, but the one that was absolutely transforming for me was learning that a premise is the external search, not an internal one, and that it shifts over the course of the memoir. And honestly, like I had a moment with Tanya after everything went tech wrong, where I shared the one that I'd written based on you teaching me that, and it has transformed everything. I've gone from feeling totally stuck to finding absolute joy, feeling like I know what my story's about. It was utterly transformed.
Amazing. Oh, wow. That makes me so happy. Yeah, great. Thank you, Amanda. Super. Terry. And tell me if I'm saying your name right or wrong.
Thierry. Pronounce it like a T-A-R-E.
Terry. Okay. The H is silent. Good.
Thank you. Well, for me, it was grasping the difference between theme and premise also. So all week I've been working on that because it wasn't clear. And then buying your book, of course, so I started working on that too. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, no one said scenes and transitions yet. I guess that's such a big one. But yeah, that's what we talked about in so many different. Thank you, Terry, for mentioning that. Absolutely. Scenes and transitions work in different ways. Great. Noah.
Hi. Mine was going to be scenes and transitions, but in a sort of specific kind of way.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
I have always tried to get myself to read more Dickens and read more Tolstoy because there's parts of it that really grip me and I can finally explain it to myself, which is that I love their transitions. Their transitions are so poignant in this present day, but their scenes are lacking for a 21st century, or at least for me as a
that is really true. Actually, I love that observation. I would agree with you. In addition to the fact that language has changed, right?
Yes.
We speak differently, even though Dickens is only a couple hundred years old, right? I mean, in a couple hundred years, I mean, we were speaking like Trish the Americans were speaking like Trish a couple hundred years ago, right? And so, I mean, American English has evolved in a really short amount of time. Well, I guess 500 years, right? When they were, right? But anyway, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that, Noah. Yeah, scenes really have changed. Subjective writing has gotten really rich. Did you, the first time the use of fun fact, guys, I get excited. Present tense was scandalous the first time it appeared in a novel, because novels were written in past tense. It was a story that you were recalling that had already happened. So when people started using present tense for the first time, it was, oh, scandalous, that's not done, right? And so literature evolves as well. I love what you're saying, Noah. Great. Super. Okay, good. We have our readers ready to get into this here. Let's see. So I changed the title. We're going to talk about common writing errors, but it's mostly the same slides. I added one more. I added one more excerpt. So hopefully the people are here. We talked just a little bit. I'm going to skip past this. This is different than most writing groups, than most writing workshops, in that we're not going to point out every great thing and every terrible thing in every sentence. What I believe in are concepts, right? And so in a lot of writing groups, a lot of writing workshops, what you see is, I love this sentence. Why don't you change the verbs? Fewer adverbs. I want big picture concepts. Yeah. So I love the part that Roger's like, yes. I want big picture ideas. I don't want things like, so in the interest of time as well, partly because this is such a huge class, I want to teach you concepts to make writing better. One thing I'm against is editors tackling structural problems. Editors cannot fix structural problems. It's a little bit like taking a three-sleeved sweater to the dry, or three-sleeved jacket to the dry cleaners to press it. Yeah, that dry cleaners are like editors. They will press the wrinkles out of your garments. But if your garment has 3 sleeves, they can't fix it. So you're going to have a well-pressed 3-sleeve jacket. Yeah. So you need to fix these concepts and your whole writing will change. So that's why I really believe in concepts. Line editing is the very last step, right? That's when someone's finessing words here and there. But usually people go to a line editor way too soon and their book is still not working. So we're going to talk about concepts today. In every class, I always get people talking about, well, I love this sentence. Yes, but that's not the point. What is the problem with this, right? And it's never in an attempt to hurt anyone's feelings, right? So thank you, those of you who are so brave to send in your excerpts and who are going to be talking about your stuff today. It's a desire to make this better. Yeah. So great. Yes. Okay.
Wendy,
We
I was
already
just gonna say, if you are sharing now, we can't see it. Unless you haven't started sharing.
No, I haven't shared yet. I'm still gabbing away here.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I was going to say Roger got excited because he took part in the pros workshop on on Thursday. So he understood it's all about the concepts and not liking the writing. Didn't you, Roger?
Good. So Roger, you can teach this. Are you ready to teach?
Yeah, Thursday, Saturday.
Okay, good. All right, I haven't started sharing yet, but thank you for, yeah, I was just going through my notes here. So I will share now. Give me a quick second.
And everybody crossed fingers before you came in. Yep.
Right?
It's all gonna work.
Now, my computer, I did take it into the shop, but he didn't inspire. He's like, well, it could be this and it could be this and I'll fix this. So I wish he'd said, it's this and I'm fixing it. But he did lots of things, the tech guy, and reinstalled. Like there's been a lot done to the computer, but fingers are still crossed. So, okay. All right, good. So we did talk really roughly, really briefly about this. Hang on, okay, good. Now I can still see you guys because I have two screens. So I can see.
This needs to be made bigger for the readers because it's a bit small if you can.
I can't make it any bigger. Yeah, it should be the same size as it was last time. I don't need you guys to read the text. Oh, Tanya. So guys, this is just a reminder from last time, right? We want chunks of blue, chunks of orange, right? We want chunks of scene writing, chunks of transition writing. So today we're going to delve in a little bit to what those blue chunks need to look like and what those orange chunks need to look like. Yeah? So we just said last time, don't mix them up. But now let's delve in a little more deeply. Let's zoom into the blue sections and zoom into the orange sections. Yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So you don't actually need to, I can't read this either. It's tiny. Okay. We read this one last time. We're going to do it again. As some people weren't here last time, it won't take long. We only got through one. So we're going to do it one more time. And I'll ask you, so pretend you're a memoir writing teacher. What concept would you teach this writer? And those of you who are here better get this right because I gave you the answer last time, right? So no pressure. Who's my first reader, Tanya?
Laura.
Laura, go. Can you read this, Laura?
That's okay. So I'll just get close like this.
Okay.
Okay. 2 days before our visa was to expire, near dusk, we approached two lorries, turned over on the side of the road. The accident could have occurred an hour earlier or a week ago. We then spotted a man in a uniform lying in the road and slowed down to help him. But when he stood up, raising a rifle with a bayonet pointing it our way, Bob anxiously floored his accelerator. Yet within a kilometer, we realized that we suddenly had a puncture. We all piled out to see 3 lacerated tires from some sharp object he'd tossed under the van. With much initial panic, suspecting we'd soon be robbed by bandits on horseback, we resigned ourselves to a long night in the desert. Bob asked us all if anyone was carrying a gun to defend ourselves, but adventure-seeking hippies had little room in their rucksack for weapons other than a Swiss Army knife with often needed scissors and a nail file. Finally, at dawn the next day, a few people flagged down a bus for a lift into the town of Zahedan. Hours later, a truck brought them back and replaced over 3 mutilated tires. In Zahedan, we ate our first basic meal in days while debating what those turned over trucks in the desert were all about. Though never substantiated, the majority saw it as a setup that forced us to spend money in Zahedan. With no further delays, we then headed out to the border check post. Following a routine exit stamp in our passport at Iranian customs, we drove through the gate looking for the Pakistani customs. And I'm trying to read as quickly as I can.
I changed it for you to 3 pages.
We were shocked to learn that customs building wasn't on the other side of the gated fence, but rather we had to drive 80 kilometers across a no man's land on a road in terrible conditions that neither country saw fit to maintain. We got stuck in sand, jumped out to push, saw no road signs or human habitation, and soon accepted at dusk that we were lost in no man's land. Following a lousy, sleepless night, we stirred at dawn, amazingly, to see ourselves still in between two countries, with our Pakistani entry visa expired during the night. We spotted and signed to some boys tending camels, and then located a semblance of a road. We soon drove into an adobe village called Nakkundi in the province of Baluchistan to greet the customs officers. Luckily, one of our passengers, John, spoke fluent Urdu, being a Punjabi Indian, even though he lived in Singapore. John had been ripped off for everything he had in Istanbul, and Bob was giving him a free lift to India, to his mother's village in the Punjab. He explained everything that had happened to the customs officer. However, we were still required to stay there for 3 days to gain permission to proceed from the head office in Quetta. Our group split up and slept as guests. Some of us stayed with the owner of the bank, and the rest with the owner of the nearby marble mine. The few open-air restaurants served sweet chai tea and very spicy food, limited to potato chickpea curry, eggs, and chapatas.
One more pitch.
I experienced, sorry, trying to zoom along here for you. I experienced immense culture shock in this village, which had no fencing or cars, yet their sheep, goats, donkeys, and camels all walked around freely. Old men in turbans, including the customs police, came to greet us at the restaurant and sat around a wooden benches, bemused and curious. We seemed to make their otherwise dull day amusing. They passed around potent pipes of local hashish, yet alcohol was illegal. So strange was this place, it did my head in. Finally, after being granted a transit visa, we set out driving up a very steep, arid, mountainous road to Quetta, the provincial capital of Baluchistan. Yet, due to its narrowness and sharp, hair-bend turns, we soon collided with a Jeep Land Rover, hugging the entire road. One of 6 Land Rovers, which was on a hunting expedition carrying 30 masked falcons, their sharp talons clinging to wooden perches. They were from Saudi Arabia, attending the Arab Summit. We had to hang out for hours waiting for their boss to appear. They carried live sheep on the truck for meals. We were invited to join them for a communal lunch, which was served with a large round wok full of rice, veggies, and spiced lamb. We all stood around the wok, reaching in for our share. Eventually, their boss drove up in a fancy Ford sedan, glanced at the van's damage, and paid us $60 in Pakistani rupees. Later, this seemed very ironic and disappointing once we learned he was from the Saudi royal family.
Thank you so much, Laura. All right, hands up. Michelle's like, I know what's wrong with this. Go for it, Michelle.
So, like we talked about last time, there's really essentially almost no scene here at all. Like it's almost entirely transition writing. You barely get tiny snippets of their actual experience. And what I also realized, like hearing it the second time around, is you don't really get to like experience learning the things that they keep saying, like, oh, we later learned this that made it disappointing. And it's like, well, how did you learn that? What happened that like eventually brought you back around? And you don't get to like actually experience the discovery of some of the things that they're like, oh, and you know, our passports expired in the middle of the night. Like, did they actually know that in the middle of the night, or did they not know that until they found that, you know, customs official in the next village who told them, no, you have to wait 3 days now. So I think there's so much exciting information here, but like you don't really get to experience it at all.
This is such a good example for everyone. Such great life material to work with. By the way, Neil Amber isn't here, right? Neil, or if you're here, put up a virtual hand. Neil Amber, just in case Neil showed up because Neil turned this in. Okay, put up a virtual hand. This is not a bad writer. This is a writer who hasn't learned the concepts of structure, the concepts of scenes and transitions. Such good material to work with, but I actually want less and I want to linger more, right? So yeah. Shelley, how does this feel to you?
So the other thing that I would add is that it seems that while he does go there a little bit, I'd like to hear more subjective internal experience about what's happening for him subjectively. Maybe even a little bit more about like, why is he there? Or, you know, what happened to set this off? Yeah.
What is this like for you being in Pakistan, right? What is your experience of it? Can we get a lot of objective writing? Definitely agree with that. Absolutely. Luz.
Hello. I think first of all, it's very interesting. So I think that's what's causing the frustration for me because I can't follow. I'm confused. If it wasn't interesting, then I'm like, whatever. But because it's very interesting, I got frustrated that I can't pinpoint like how this happened, this whole thing. I have no idea how many days this transpired, or it's not settling for me. So I think, but I wouldn't be able to say this if I hadn't attended the class, differentiating from scenes and transitions, right? So if it was not in class, I would have just said, this is not good writing. But now that I know, I think it's good writing, except that it's not organized or structured well.
Yes. I love what you said, Luz. Exactly. Every sentence is really good. This is a good writer who doesn't understand expand and scrape away and expand. You're right. I love what you said, Luz. Great. Corey.
I think somebody said that this is one long transition, but I looked at it like it was one long and rapidly moving scene, that there was no reflection, there was no point to it. It was just one long scene, kinda, because it just moves so quickly that you never linger in the scene. It's a bunch of little scenes. It's a bazillion little scenes with no transitions, and there's no point to each scene. It's just a bunch of stuff that's happening.
So, absolutely. This person needs to understand the concepts of scenes and transitions. We talked about it last time. We're going to get into it more specifically. Exactly what you're talking about, Corey. We're going to talk about writing to a main event in your scene. So we'll talk more about that today. Yeah, well spotted. Okay. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to call on 3 more people. Yeah. And next time, so put your hands up for the next time. Yeah. 3 more people. And so I'm going to call on Sarah, Anita, and Lori, and then put your hand up for the next time. Halo, please. Just Sarah. I'm sorry. Sarah. Okay,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I was going to say something similar to what you said about it being a lot of tiny little scenes with lots of scene markers. But
exactly.
No expansion.
You guys are all saying the same thing in different ways, which I really love. I mean, it shows this understanding of what we talked about last time. Tons of time markers, just what we talked about last time, creating an expectation for a scene, but not getting one. It's what Corey said as well in a different way, right? So you guys are feeling this. You're looking at this in terms of scenes and transitions. Anita.
Yeah, I suddenly realized with what someone said before that there was very few I's in there. It seemed to be mostly we's, which then doesn't become subjective writing.
True.
And then
excellent.
also, we don't know where it's going. I mean, he's obviously on a trip, but I can't work out where he started, what the purpose of the trip was, and where he's going. So it's not hanging together, so that you haven't got the proper transitions to make it the little scenes that are within the little scenes stick together as having a purpose and being able to go on.
What's the point? Right? So everything is given the same weight. So you don't really know what to take away from this. How much of this do you remember? You only heard it read to you, what, a minute ago? How much of it do you remember? Now, when you read a book, you remember what happened, right? So compare this to your experience reading a novel or a memoir that you like, and you remember what just happened. There's so much happening here that you don't know what to take away from it. So what Anita's saying, that what's the point? When you know what the point is, you remember the point, right? So this is another huge problem with this kind of writing, not understanding scene and transition writing. Your reader doesn't remember anything. So, and I see this happen a lot. Lori, last comment here.
I think everybody's already made pretty much all the comments I was going to make. But one thing I would say is that what was read sounds like it could be 3 different memoirs. You know, like you could expand it out so much. So taking one scene and expanding on it with the interiority and your thoughts and the reasons and the transitions, and then you can, you know, because the ideas are there. It's just, so I think it's all said. So yeah.
So much stuff in here. Again, I say scrape away and expand, right? So we want less information. So one of the problems I call,
Wendy.
Yes.
And this is based on what Anita said and what you've been saying, is what is the point? This is like what we call diary style writing. You're doing it for yourself. You're listing all the things that you've done over the days. Nobody's going to read it, so there's no point to it. And it's boring for anybody else but you to go back and list this. We did this, and then we did this, and then we did this. This is diary style writing. It's not good memoir writing. It's good writing. But if he had to do what Wendy's saying and scrape away and do scenes and transitions, then you would turn that into really good memoir writing.
Absolutely. So the solution to this is a little bit about what we talked about last time. Every time there's a time anchor, you've created this expectation for a scene. So you got to get rid of a lot of those time anchors, right? Because, I mean, one option is to turn everything into a scene, but that's going to turn this into 3 memoirs, right? So if you expand on everything, not really the solution, right? What is important about this? What are the moments a reader wants to live through with you? Those are your scenes. And then you're going to use transitions to let your reader know why what they're about to read has to do with what they just read. That's what the transition does. If this writer did this, it wouldn't be writing from memory. There would be a lot fewer things happening, and we would have a collection of very short scenes that were connected by transitions to tell a story, and it would feel very different. Yeah? So that is how books are constructed, and this is just a concept problem. So yeah, the only way to fix writing from memory is to think of your memoir in a different way, right? This book isn't really about you. This is about your reader. You're taking true events from your life and you're turning it into something a stranger cares about. And in order to do that, you have to have these moments that a reader wants to live through with you, and you have to tell a story. It has to feel like a story. So that's the only way to fix it. This is the hardest problem to fix, and it's probably the most common one I see, right? It's just very common. I did this, it's very easy to think, well, I'm just going to write down what happened. I'm writing about my life. This is what happened. This is what I remember. But that's not at the level of literature yet. That's not what books look like. So very common thing I see, nothing to feel bad about, but it's something you need to keep in mind, and it's something you need to fix if you want a book that readers want to buy. So yeah, I've said all this stuff. You can, I get ahead of my slides usually. All right, let's do a sample of transition writing. This is where, fingers crossed, this is where we really went downhill last time. So far so good though. Who is my next reader?
Michelle.
And I do think, so this, and I know, Margaret, are you here? Margaret wrote to me. Margaret, put up a virtual hand. There's Margaret. Margaret, it's nice to see you. Good. You ready for this? Okay, good. Really, I think there's so much interesting stuff in here, but it's a concept problem, Margaret. Good writer, it's a concept problem. We're going to talk about transition writing and what needs to go in it. So who's my reader, Tanya?
Michelle.
Michelle. Go for it, Michelle.
At the time of my birth in Calcutta on the 8th of June, 1930, India is struggling for independence. Of course, I am completely unaware of this because all I want is milk, sleep, and hugs. My father, Ernest William Shakespeare, is a lieutenant colonel in the Royal Indian Army Service Corps. He and his parents were born in India but remain British subjects. He married my mother, Mary Teresa Mason, in 1927. She was also born in India, though her parents are from the UK and they eventually returned there. We live in a typical British colonial house surrounded by high walls and barbed wire. Most of the time I am cared for by a lovely Aya, nursemaid, who carries me around her waist as she goes about her daily activities. That is, when I am not crawling along the ground, exploring my surroundings and getting covered in dirt. I have a natural curiosity to touch, smell, and taste anything nearby, and I enjoy running everywhere barefoot. As an only child, I'm the center of attention, which I love. Looking at some of my early photos, I notice a lively personality with an inclination of the head and a somewhat cheeky grin. Nothing much changes as I mature, by the way, particularly my tendency to be easily distracted. If you could ask my friends, I am sure they would agree. So what kinds of things do I remember? Moving to Simla, the unofficial summer capital for British expats, to avoid the excessive heat in the monsoons. Being fascinated by the mischievous monkeys as we walked to Christchurch on Sundays, and wearing my Sunday best clothes. The church is a magnificent building with lovely stained glass windows and a huge organ, but it doesn't provide much interest for me. Every week, I sit for what seems like hours, not understanding a word that's being uttered. Wriggling around on a hard pew is the strongest of my memories, as well as getting told off for making a noise, especially when I fall off and hit my head. Daddy is not always with us because of his military duties, and I so look forward to the times he comes home. He tickles me, throws me in the air, hugs me, and says, "I love you, my little princess." But he's also quite strict, reminds me that our Aya is not my servant, and that I need to pick up my toys and put them away. I don't remember Mummy, for reasons you'll find out later. Most of my time is spent with my Aya, who feels just like another member of the family. As well as looking after my daily needs, she is also responsible for my preschool education. By the time I am 4, she has taught me how to read, as well as attempt to write. It's very basic, of course, but I love sitting with her, a pencil in my mouth, as she writes words on a piece of paper that she then asks me to read. When I get one right, she applauds, telling me what a clever girl I am. I have a best friend, Babs, who lives close by, and we are allowed to play together for about an hour every day. She is such fun to be with and is the nearest thing to a sister I could have wished for. We share toys and enjoy making up stories. There are dolls and tea sets, but my particular favorite is a wooden car. I love the sound of the wheels as I rub it along the floor, shouting whoosh as I send it off into the unknown. I can't wait to drive when I'm a big girl. We also play hide and seek, and I'm still laughing when I recall standing in a corner, hands over my eyes, saying, "You can't see me." My friendship with Babs is so strong that we remain in touch throughout our lives. 90 plus years must be close to a world record.
Okay, perfect. I thought I'd missed a slide. Oh, do we get it all, Margaret? We didn't. Okay, perfect. This one's a little bit harder. There's some nice little moments in here. Good subjective writing. Okay, first 5 people. Yeah, I'm going to put a limit here. Raise your hand. First 5 people. I want one more person. Comment here. What advice would you give Margaret? Margaret's right here. Talk to Margaret. Talk to me. Diane.
Okay, bonjour. What I loved was that this is the writing is beautiful. You can fall into it. The descriptions are lovely, and I want more. This was my problem with it, was that I want more. There are snippets and another snippet and another snippet. Each one could have been embellished. Much more. I felt like, okay, oh, she's changing the subject. She's on to something else. Here, but what happened over there? Oh, her mother died. Oh my goodness, So there's in the structure, obviously, hasn't done the scenes and transitions.
Exactly. Beautifully written. Lots of personality. It's very sweet. Good material. There's but you get us excited, Margaret, and then you're like on to something else, right? So that's what's happening. How does this feel to you, Jennifer? What advice?
Margaret, I loved this. I was just taken right in from the very first sentence, and I think it's a good illustration of how difficult it is to easily assess the issues, the structure, etc. Because if the subject matter is inherently interesting to you, you're going to want to keep reading, and you're going to think, "Oh, this is beautiful writing, and this is wonderful." And so I loved all that. What was challenging for me was that I didn't feel a sense of momentum. Like the only thing that tied these things together was kind of the passing of time. And so I didn't know like where, because even if you had a lot of this kind of descriptive writing, if it was leading in a particular direction, that would have been really helpful. And then there were obvious opportunities where you could have a scene with a timestamp. Like I doubt very much that you fell off the pew more than once, or maybe more than 5 times at the church, and that might have been a nice story. I don't know.
I'm going to come, I want to say, add to what Jennifer said. I'm going to go through the comments and then I'm going to say the big takeaway, because I think Jennifer's onto something. We have lots of disconnected stories. So that's Mari.
Yeah. Sorry. I think this touches upon one of your YouTube videos about how you disagree with the show not tell, and I absolutely agree with you too. But I think this is a case where she needs to tell more. And like for example, what you have here every week, I sit for what seems like hours. Um, Tell us about those hours. Like this is where I want to be, where I want her to show. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would
So
say.
scrape away and expand. I say it all the time, right? A little bit less, but what you're going to give me, really give me. I say this all the time, and it's almost always true for just about everyone's writing, right?
But I would agree. I was really pulled in, and I identify with her, and I'm like kind of in her head, but I want to be more with her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slowing it down, I think, would right?
Exactly.
So a little more, yeah.
Yeah.
MP.
I agree with what everyone has said. This is beautiful writing. It all feels like transition writing. I don't see that time anchor that says, in this time, this thing happened, that like makes for an action in the story. There's all kinds of description all around of things happening, but I'm not in what's happening. And I think what I'm missing are those time anchors.
Okay, it is transition writing. So I did ask for scenes, but I was actually secretly happy that some people gave me transition writing so that we could talk about it. This is transition writing. It almost works as transition writing, but we kind of get these events. So I hear you, MP. Hey guys, I said 5. No, all right, I'm gonna all right, I'm gonna go Noah and Halo, and no, Halo, I'm gonna go to you. Noah, what do you have to say? And oh, Noah, you're muted.
Yep.
There you are.
I got it. I caught it. I'm glad you said it was transition writing. That's what I thought it was. I'm pretty new to these terms. I wasn't sure. The thing that I was looking for, that I know to look for now, is some version of Until One Day.
Okay. Yes.
And I didn't know if maybe there were more of those and I just wasn't catching them, or but I never felt like we zoomed in on.
The one day creates the expectation for a scene. So it's actually good that we didn't get a lot of one days, because that would have made this a little more frustrating. Right? So yes. All right. Halo, last comment. And then I want to talk about the one thing no one has pointed out, which is actually the most important concept. Halo, are you going to do it? No pressure, right? Unmute yourself, Halo. You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Okay, my comment is pretty short. I loved having all of these feelings that made me remember feelings that I had when I was a little kid, even though the circumstances were different. But I didn't feel like I could get emotionally involved in it, and maybe it's because I didn't have enough of the adult in it or something like that. This is all so new to me. I just discovered you a week ago. So in terms of the terms, I don't know, but I felt sort of pulled in, but like I couldn't taste it or something. I like, maybe a little more of the adult's reflection, or I don't know, something more happening.
A little more reflection, slowing this down, really putting us there with you. We do get some of it, Margaret, and I think people reacted to that. Thank you, Halo. One thing no one pointed out, and this is the most important concept. What did I say? That's okay. It's a hard question. At the beginning of class, scenes are the moments that a reader's going to live through with you. What is your transition doing? Anyone remember? Now you can put a hand up if you remember. What does your transition do? Margaret has a hand up. Go for it. I want Margaret to answer.
It's
there you go.
The linking between one scene and another.
Yes. Now, how are you going to link between one scene and the next if you're talking about all this stuff? That's the big issue. So if you think of your transition in the right way, it's going to solve every other problem that people pointed out. Because you're not going to have a bunch of little stuff happening. You're going to have one idea that gets us into your scene. So it will solve the problem. This is also a little bit of a problem of writing from memory. Margaret, this is really good writing from memory, but it's still the same problem. This idea that I'm going to write about my life. Writing about your life is not a story. And what I try and do is take these memories you have and turn them into scenes and transitions, which creates a story. Yeah, so that is the big issue. And if you think of your transition in terms of it's setting up the scene that's going to come after it, you're not going to write like this. You're going to have an idea. I don't know what the first scene is after this, Margaret, but you would have this, it might all be about your father. I'm just making that up, right? And then you'd have a scene about your father. So whenever there's a chunk of transition writing, it needs to lead into the scene. It's setting up your scene. It's not giving us a bunch of information about you or your life. That's the concept here. And that would change it completely. Thank you for being our guinea pig, Margaret. I appreciate it. Halo and Laura, do you guys have something quick to add? Really quick comment. Halo, I think, still had Laura, and then Jennifer quickly. Okay. What do you have to add?
Me? So I'm still caught maybe, and I don't know if this belongs to the questions time. So is this there's no why? I'm not seeing the why she's like any of the say. Is that what transition is answering?
It's giving us an idea. Yeah, it is. It would fix the problem of why is the author telling me this? And so if the transition writing happened to be, all about her father, or I'll pick any paragraph, right? And that would be the idea. There's a new idea in every paragraph. So I don't know which paragraph should be the transition writing, but it needs to be the idea that sets up the scene, right? So as an example, let me just pick.
Wendy, I have an example that I did this morning from one of my students that I was
perfect
bring up here. So what Wendy said earlier is that the reason you have that transition is to connect your scenes, okay? And a lot of our students think that then I'm just going to use my transitions to put every single thing I can remember that I want to put in, but it's not what's happening in between the two scenes. It's not doing its job. Now, I've just had a student who, in the very beginning today, I can't remember who it was, that said that one of her biggest takeaways from last week was that every chapter has a premise. There has to be a story. And with this student, her premise of this chapter is it's a man's world. She's battling, it's a man's world. So her transitions have to use that to connect the scenes. And she's done that really well, except one of them, she's just decided that everything she's wanted to say is going to go. And what happened over the years is going to go into this one transition. And it's got nothing to do with the scenes or the story that has just happened. And this is a bit like this. It read like this. It made no sense whatsoever. Those transitions are doing it has a specific purpose, and it's to connect your scenes, not to just go, and then I got a PhD, and then I went and I did this and this and this between the scenes because it happened at that time in your life. It's not what you're looking for. It's what happened between the two scenes that makes a cohesive story. Does that make
so let me give you an example, and then I haven't forgotten you, Jennifer. Let me so I want to give an example based on what we're looking at, because you can actually see the words on the screen. Tanya is absolutely right. I appreciate it, Tanya. Let's go with this example. I'm looking at near the top, second sentence. Most of my time is spent with Aya, who feels like another member of the family. This is all good, as well as my daily needs. She's responsible for my preschool education. By the time I'm 4, she's taught me how to read as well as write. It's very basic. When I get one right, she applauds, telling me what a clever girl I am. One day, Aya comes up to me, however, and she's crying. There's the beginning of my scene. One day, Aya comes up to me. So what transition writing do we need depends on the scenes that you're going to include in this chapter. And that is one reason I actually suggest usually you choose your scenes first. They determine the transition writing that you need. You can go the other way around and like summarize your chapter. You can. It causes more problems in my experience because people tend to tell their story using transitions, right? So I ask people, come up with your scenes first. You can't have a memoir without scenes. And then fill in the transition writing necessary to connect them, to make this a story. Don't give me a bunch of information. Your reader doesn't care about your life. I'm sorry. Your family does. Your friends do. Jennifer.
So thank you for this opportunity to ask this question, because you're talking about how transition writing sets up a scene, but in the big picture of a memoir, sometimes you need to do the setup for the chapters that follow. So if you're trying to get some fundamentals about like family history out quickly so that you can build upon it with your subsequent chapters that would have lots of scenes, does that work?
I think that you need to get rid of family history for the most part, unless the story requires it. Don't set up. Why would you put family history in unless it's part of the actual plot? Otherwise, it's just background. Otherwise, it's just information, right? So information to a reader is the opposite of a story. Information is about you. I see people, they try to get family information into their book, but if your family members are not part of the story, I see people do this with characters. I see them like describe James, in detail. And I'm like, don't describe James in detail unless he's going to do something in the next scene. Because I'm going to forget about this description of James unless he actually does something. So really, it still applies. In fact, it's even more important, because if you're putting things because they're going to be important later, you're going to have problems. You're going to have massive structural problems. Yeah,
Jennifer,
they need to be important there. So if something's going to be important later, it also needs to be important where you're putting it in your book. You can have it be important for a secondary reason later that your reader doesn't yet know about, but you have to make it relevant here. Otherwise, it drives your reader crazy. You think that because they like go blah, 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 they skip over it because they don't see the importance. And they're not going to remember it when it's important later. Really important concept. Yeah. Corey and Anita. And then no more questions. Well, yeah, you guys can ask questions as long as it's related to what we're talking about. I'm trying to get through this stuff. Corey, yes.
I was just going to comment that the way we experience life is through scenes. Like we live our life, it's a bunch of scenes. And so it's more natural, as you say, to outline a chapter through scenes. And then we connect the scenes together. That's how our mind works when you look at your life. You don't like look at your life and say like some grand thing and then figure out which scenes fits into it. We experience life through scenes.
Corey, you said something. I'm going to expand on that because you said something quite profound. So your book really is these collection of moments, these scenes, and your narration is often told from the point of view of the person you are now. Not always, but often there is this narrator, we don't want to know about your current life. Please don't do that. You'll muck up your story. You'll muck up your plot line. You'll do all kinds. Don't tell us about your current life. But it's the perspective of the person you are now. So it's you piecing, what I loved about what Corey said, it's you piecing these things together in a way you didn't realize at the time. So your narrator, be very careful of this. I don't want to know that I'm sitting here in Alaska, typing on my computer. I have 4 kids and I'm reminiscing about my childhood. Do not do that, right? You can be that. But take that wisdom of that older person and say, when I'm 5 years old, I have no clue about my parents' relationship, right? That 5-year-old's not going to make that comment. It's you now. Right? You are telling the story, and then you're going to put us there with you being 5 years old. But you have this older perspective that you can use. Yeah, so I love what Corey said. Piecing it together, you can use what you know now, not only what that 5-year-old knew. Yeah, so you have both in your book. You have that 5-year-old perspective, but you're the one narrating the story. You're the narrator of it. John, and then Michelle.
Yeah, I was going to say there was the perspective I had in the scene then, what I thought was going on, and now there's a perspective looking back, going, well, yes, but, or yes, and, or yeah, I kind of got it wrong. How do you sort of, merge those things together?
I did a video, I've done a couple of videos on this. So I'm going to tell you to go to the YouTube channel because I give examples. And what I say is that I call it the older, wiser narrator. So there are 2 videos. One is called, Can I Have 2 Narrators in My Book? And the other one is called, Is the Narrator Looking Back or Recounting the Present? There's something close to that. Those 2 videos. And I give examples of how it doesn't bother your reader at all. And the reason it doesn't bother your reader is because we've seen this in every novel we've ever read. And so it's just normal to us. It happens. Now, it doesn't happen as often if it's present tense, first person. Really super modern literature doesn't always have the older, wiser narrator. But you go to Dickens, you go just back 100 years, every single book has it. Right. And most contemporary books do as well, novels or memoirs, most, not all. Yeah. So it's hard to get it wrong, John. The only way you can get it wrong is when you start telling us about the older, wiser narrator's current life. You've inserted a new plot line. Do not do that. I can't stress it enough because I love the older, wiser narrator. I think it's really fun. I think it allows you to add so much more insight and make your writing richer. So yeah, so watch the videos because I give examples of books that do it. And it's hard to get wrong. It really is. So yeah. Michelle.
So I'm probably going about this in a different way. The idea of the older, wiser narrator, I'm not doing that. I've been trying to write from the perspective of coming along with me on the story from the inciting event. So I have an inciting event that I want to begin with.
Okay, so is this related to what we're talking about? Because I do a Q&A at the end if you have questions about your own book.
Well, it's the concept of the older, wiser narrator.
Are you asking me a question about this? If you're asking me a question about your book, I'll answer it in the Q&A at the end.
Okay,
just so
gotcha.
we get through. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'm happy
absolutely.
to answer questions about books, but just in the interest of time so that we get through the material.
Yep.
Yeah?
Okay.
So, okay, no worries. Let us go on to the next excerpt. Okay, what is the concept here? Yeah, we've gone through all of this. So what goes in your transition? See, I get ahead of my slides. Okay, next one. This is only 1 page. Who's my reader? Tanya.
Lose. I think I'm saying it right.
Lou?
Lose.
Where's Lou?
Lose.
Lose.
Yes.
Oh,
As
loose,
in loose coins.
As in loose. Okay.
Yes.
Loose. We have just 1 page for you. Actually, do we have Gregory here? Gregory Rake? Raise a virtual hand for me if you're here because I can't see everyone on my screen. I can only see people. Gregory Rake, are you here? Raise a virtual. Oh, there's Gregory. Gregory is applauding. Gregory, would you mind putting up a virtual hand so that I can actually see you? I saw your applause, but I didn't see your, I can't see you. It'll put you to the front of my screen if you put up a virtual hand. Gregory, maybe you're struggling to do that. It's okay, Gregory. Try and do it in the meantime there's Gregory. Oh, Gregory from Bolivia, from Tiquipaya, right, Gregory? I remember. That's
right.
Hi, Gregory. So again, we're going to give you feedback to this in the interest of making it better. You're a really good writer, and these are concepts that everyone needs to learn. Yeah, you ready for this?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, Luce, go for it. Just 1 page. I cut this down a lot. We're just so we can really focus on what's going on here.
I explained my situation and he began to smile. Sure, I am going to Kobija. I have a load of vegetables, and if I wait 1 more day, I will have to throw them all out and lose my money. He looked at his watch and said, "Meet me at that plane." He pointed to an old twin-engine cargo plane on the edge of the tarmac. In 15 minutes, make sure you go to the bathroom. In my excitement, I forgot to ask him how much he would charge, etc. I was going home. As I got closer to the plane, I could see, even through the fog, that it had seen happier days. The hull was rusted and the doors seemed to be missing, but it did have 2 engines. I leaned in the door and saw that there were no seats, just a metal floor corroded through in places. Another man walked up to me and extended his hand. Mucho gusto, vos soy German, el ayudante de Capitan Jose. He motioned me on the plane, and then Jose turned from the pilot's seat and invited me to go sit with him in the co-pilot seat. I climbed in and was greatly relieved when I saw a seatbelt and harness.
Perfect. Thank you, Luz. We throw you guys all these foreign words in here sometimes, right? Good. So feedback. What's going on with this one? Different thing, different concept. What do you guys think? What concept is missing here? MP.
It seems like I'm missing subjective writing. I don't know if that's the right term, but
you got it.
I'm not in his
That is exactly. And why? Does anyone want to add why, or does MP? You guys are quiet on this one. MP, talk to us. Do you know why? Do you want to keep talking?
Why
do we need subjective writing? Well, how would subjective writing change this?
To put me in the scene with him, to make me really feel what's happening around him and not just have him describing what he's experiencing.
Yeah, this is the classic example of show don't tell. This is so much showing. I get this visual experience, but it's not an emotional experience because I'm seeing everything. Everything's happening, right? So you need something to happen in your scene, but having too much happen in your scene takes away the emotional experience of it. It's this and this and this and this, and it's a little bit overwhelming. Noah and then Michelle.
So I don't know if I'm getting this, but it feels like these were very, like I was on the edge of my seat because of the objective details, because, okay, we're in a plane and you can see through the floor of the plane.
Okay.
And it feels like that's going to be gripping no matter who's going through, like any person on the planet stepping into a plane and you can see through the floor of the plane, that's going to be scary. So the subjective writing is there to say how it was scary to me. Like it's such a specific, it would be generally scary to anyone. How was your experience of that relevant to you?
I'm going to go to Michelle and then I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to talk about how this would be different with subjective writing. I'm going to talk about the difference. I want to see what Michelle and Halo have to say.
So all I know is when the one sentence, I was going home, exclamation mark. I just wanted more information, like, oh, there's something going on with this. Like, I need to know why this is so important to him.
Yeah, what matters here, right? So, Halo.
I think like what's potentially lost is missing. Like he's got a load of vegetables, and if he waits one more day, he'll have to throw them all out. Like I want to know more about what the crisis is and why if he waits one more day. I mean, they could rot or whatever, but it's kind of like the old man in the sea, you know, or in the very first thing, he's like, there was an old man in the sea and he had gone so many days without taking a fish, and you know right away what is like what the urgency is. And I don't
feel the only thing, Halo, is that he might have done it earlier. We only gave him 3 paragraphs, so he might have, and there is an ellipsis there. He might have done it earlier. I really want to focus on subjective writing because that's the concept we're talking about here. Luz, do you have something to add about subjective writing?
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was feeling like there's a big opportunity to do subjective writing in each of the paragraphs. So the first one could have been 3 paragraphs explaining why he's feeling like that. And then the second one is another one. He would have told me like, what, are you scared because the plane looks like that? Or because I know what the plane looks like. I don't know what you're feeling or even what you're thinking, but you know that there's the importance of having 2 engines. So what are you thinking? And then the other one, so now you're not scared because you're a co-pilot. So I'm looking for that perspective, that what are you thinking, what are you feeling when you're telling me this?
Right. So we need, Zabby, you want to add something quickly about subjective writing?
Yeah, I don't know, like he says, in my excitement. So what he described in the earlier paragraph is the scare, like he should be scared, but he's excited because he's going home. So I'm confused where the subjective is he nervous because of the state of the plane, or has he totally ignored that and he's just excited because he got to ride in a plane to where he wants to go?
Wait, so I love what you're saying, because you would think we'd know what he's feeling, but he's saying he's excited. But there's this rusted out plane with the floor missing and no seats. Never assume that the objective details will let me know what you're thinking. In fact, my favorite memoir writing is like, I see this plane and I'm thrilled. I know this is going to be amazing, because that's not what you would expect. I actually don't know what the narrator is feeling and thinking unless you come out and tell me. And it's always, whenever I'm in our Q&A with our clients, I'm always like, so I'm imagining you're really scared. So, and they're like, no, I'm actually not. And their version is always so much more interesting than what I assume it is. We never know the thoughts that are going through your head, and we need those thoughts in order to have this emotional experience. Otherwise, we're just watching this. This is a different medium than screenwriting. A film is a different experience for a reader. A film doesn't have this lovely narration. You have words on the page. A film takes words on the page and turns it into pictures and dialogue, right? You don't have that, but you have something different. And so you need to know how to use this medium in the right way. This is not screenwriting. So how do you create an emotional experience in a book? It is the subjective writing. The other thing I would say is that once upon a time, I would say, you need to discover your voice. And my poor students would go, how do I do that? I'm like, I don't know, read a lot of books, right? I realized that the subjective writing is your voice. The objective writing is what anyone would write. But the subjective write is the way you see the world, the way you see this moment. Yeah? So that is why subjective writing is so important. So I imagine, so I'm going to say 5 different people today who had witnessed, let's pretend that 5 different people witnessed this scene. Who were there in this moment, I would expect 5 completely different versions. In fact, some person might go, oh, I couldn't believe we were going to get into this plane with no seats and I could see the hole. And another person might be, I didn't even notice it. I was so worried that my vegetables were going to rot. I just was in a hurry. I didn't care. I didn't care. My life depended on the vegetables, not the plane, right? So part of it is the details you choose to focus on. You don't give me a little bit of everything you remember. What matters? So first of all, it's how do you write a good scene? What is the good prose in a scene? Part of it is the details you choose to focus on, and part of it is putting me inside your head and interpreting what is actually happening, interpreting those details. Are you excited about this hollowed out plane? Are you terrified? Are you thinking that this is your last day on Earth? Or are you thinking, wow, what a great start to my trip? I don't really know, right? Does that make sense, Gregory? Gregory, I want you to talk to us for a little bit here. Thumbs up, says Gregory. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes really good sense. And from the other points that have been made about the other writing as well, I understand. Yeah, very good input. And yeah, there's a lot of subjective feelings and emotions that I didn't put into it. It is a description.
Yeah.
Now, the last part, of course, going over the Andes and counting 30 seconds through the fog, that's something else, but that's at the end. But again, I understand this is great input, because I am beginning to understand the need for more of me and not just the description.
I love what you said, Gregory. I didn't cut you off, did I? I got excited.
No.
Yeah. Okay. The need for you. It is so counterintuitive as a memoir writer, because I say to you all the time, and you probably know, a stranger doesn't care about your life. Ironically, by being incredibly personal, we do care, because we see ourselves in you. You are creating this emotional experience. Well, actually, I have been to Kobe, Gregory, but let's pretend I have never been to Kobe.
You haven't lived.
Right. I haven't had this. I haven't been on this plane. Been on similar ones, but oh boy, this terrible example. This is kind of my life. A lot of things I'll read about. We'll just go back to Margaret's example. I've never been to India, right? But I have a relationship with my father, right? Or even if I don't, I have a relationship with someone who cares about me, right? When I was a child. So these moments, all you have to do is connect with your reader emotionally. One thing I say a lot is if you affect your reader emotionally, they will never be bored. People are so worried about this, like getting to their climax and having increasing suspense. First of all, this is a memoir. You don't need this twists and turns in your book, but you need to affect your reader emotionally. When have you ever been like sobbing in a movie and gone, I'm so bored, right? I mean, you can't be affected emotionally and bored at the same time. It's impossible. So if you worry about affecting your reader, now if your structure is a mess or they don't understand your book, they're not going to be affected emotionally. So you got to get the structure right. You have to tell the story in the right way. But your next task, once you have the structure, is to affect them emotionally. Subjective writing, it really is as simple as that. Add subjective writing to this. You're going to add personality. You're going to make me care, and you're going to transport me. I'm not just going to be visualizing what happened. I'm going to be feeling it. I'm going to be feeling what Gregory felt. Even if I personally would have been terrified and Gregory was thinking this was super fun, right? I'm going to feel what Gregory felt. I need you to tell me what to feel. And the way you're telling me what to feel is subjective writing. It is so important. Sometimes I go through and I highlight for teaching purposes. I don't do it in books I'm reading, right? But how much of it, usually about half of your book should be subjective writing, sometimes more, like how within a paragraph. Like when I look at this page, if I highlighted all the subjective writing, about half of this text should be highlighted. If you want to be mathematical about it, or even more. In fact, really quick comment. I know Tanya has a hand up. I promise I'm going to call on you. Just this one thought. So super commercial fiction, like detective fiction, like really commercial twists and turns, mysteries. Super commercial fiction has very little subjective writing because it's all plot based, right? There are always these, that's what keeps you turning the page. I'm not a huge fan of that, by the way. Super literary writing has almost no plot. It's all subjective writing. So it's this continuum, right? It can be overwhelming, all subjective writing. Nothing is happening in this book, right? So memoir falls on this continuum a little closer to the subjective writing side. So this is zero subjective writing. This is all subjective writing, this continuum. And memoir, can you guys see me? I'll make my hand smaller, right? So memoir falls closer on the side of more subjective writing, just like literary fiction, because you're never going to have the same plot twists and turns as when you can make stuff up, right? This is your life. So you need plot, but your reader doesn't have the same expectations for twists and turns. You make up for it by affecting them emotionally with subjective writing. Tanya, and then we're going to move on to the next one.
So I just wanted to bring up another example because this came out in our prose workshop on Thursday with one of the students. And it's very similar to what you're saying about the subjective writing actually creates your narrative voice and also sets the tone. And setting the tone is very important. And one of the students had written, it was actually, instead of one scene, she is new, so, she's still learning, but it was 3 scenes. Basically, she's in a boat with a captain that she doesn't know. Next minute, in one line, they're giving snorkels and they dropped into the water. And she sees a guy with a spear gun and she goes, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And then, but it's the best fish and chips we ever had. And in discussing this, she said, I was terrified. I was so scared. I'm like, none of us got that. You went like, you didn't tell us you were terrified. You didn't tell us that you were just like being dropped in the water. None of us. It was just a diary of what you went through. And if you had slowed that down, if you had from the beginning told us that maybe this wasn't a good idea, who was this guy? Who were the other two? They looked shifty. Could we actually turn around? We're in the middle of the sea. Next thing, he just drops us off and says, jump overboard. But she jumped from that to going, it was the best fish and chips we'd ever had. And I'm like, set your tone, put us inside your head. This is 3 scenes, slow it down. And you could have made us terrified because nobody got that you were terrified at all.
Tanya, so good. So it's not all the details. Again, this is so hard for memoir writers. Like, oh, I'm going to write a scene. I'm going to tell you everything I remember. No, you really aren't. Actually, that's what we're going to talk about in the next scene. So before I get into it, I'll have a reader here. Okay, just really quickly, I just wanted to show you, this was all the subjective writing. Very little, almost none. Yeah, can you guys see? I highlighted it here. I made it purple. Yeah, very little. This is the thinking that goes. So we need about half of it to be subjective writing. Fern is our next reader. Okay, on to the next excerpt here. Fern.
Yes, I'm here. As we began to put the house to bed and lights were being turned off, I noticed a red glow behind the wood paneling covering the fireplace. I paused and then yelled, "Fire!" and called 911. Everyone began to do something. While John and Pete tried to hook up the garden hose to the bathroom faucet, I took the income tax papers I had been working on, my purse, and the stash box out to the back porch. I ran back upstairs and got my daughter out of bed. I wrapped her in my warmest coat and on the way to the car, grabbed the dog. I put both Cindy and the dog in the car and promised to check on them occasionally. Cindy reminded me later she was on the side of the house where she couldn't see anything, so the waiting was difficult for her. All of that probably only took about 10 minutes. I heard the fire sirens and remembered how difficult the driveway was to negotiate. I ran out to the street and told the first firefighters to drive directly over the plants and bushes to the house. They parked their trucks on the far side of the maple trees, probably couldn't get as close as they would have liked, and began to do their firefighting thing. A fireman asked if there was anyone still in the house. I said no. 5 people and 2 dogs are all out. There are 2 cats, but since I haven't seen them, I assume they were upstairs. They won't come towards the fire to get to the stairs. I already knew they would not survive, and it was not worth anyone trying to find them by that time.
Next one. Keep going, Fern.
Okay. We were suddenly relegated to watching. The drop in adrenaline was abrupt. I went back into the laundry room, far from the source of the fire, and grabbed jackets for all of us. And we continued to stand in the yard, watching the house burn and the firemen trying to put out the fire. The first time I went to check on Cindy and the dog, we watched a firefighter with a large axe sever the electrical line on the side of the house, cutting off electrical power to the house. I remembered reading that fire could run along electrical lines. Later, a fireman came over to us where we're standing off the back porch, watching the fire in the windows of the second floor. The fireman said they had the fire contained, but needed to break through the roof to completely put the fire out. The fire was in a column around the fireplace. Fine, whatever it takes. I gave permission to cut into the roof. Now I began to worry whether we would be held responsible for the fire and the damage to the house. A firefighter brought me the 2 cats wrapped in towels. He confirmed that they had been in the 2 bedrooms farthest from the stairs. They had died of smoke inhalation, not being burned. I buried them in the yard several days later. The interesting part of the firefighting process was the amount of time the firemen spent to ensure that all embers were out. They tore up the carpeting on the stairway. which was apparently a common place for embers to hide and reignite. They shoveled a whole lot of debris out the second-floor windows and hosed it down. They covered the hole in the roof with a tarp. I admired and appreciated their thoroughness.
Okay. Is Leslie Rigg here? Leslie, put up a virtual hand so I can see you. Leslie. How come I chose excerpts that people didn't come? Come on, Leslie. Are you, or maybe you're here, Leslie? Took me a while to find Gregory there. Leslie, put up a virtual hand because I can't see everyone on my screen. I can only see, I don't know, 40 people at a time, and I'm not seeing you. No, okay. We're gonna assume that Leslie's not here. And Leslie, if you are here, it's just so we can talk to you. So you can talk back to us and ask us questions. Okay, Theresia, oh, I'm gonna tell me pronounce your name. Theresia.
No, that was pretty good. It's Theresia.
Okay, thank you. Theresia, comments for.
I think it's the same problem with there's not subjective writing. I mean, it's a harrowing story. It's so the details are gripping, but I don't know how she feels. Like she feels disconnected from this incredibly harrowing. I don't know if she's sad that her cats died. I don't know if she's feeling like unbelievable gratitude that all the humans got out. I don't know her shock at the moment when she notices the fire. I just don't know. I'm just filling in the blanks for.
Exactly. Even though you would think, okay, I'm feeling terrified, maybe she's feeling nothing. Maybe she's feeling shock, right? Maybe it's like, I felt nothing at the time. Like in recalling it, I could barely remember. I mean, that's a valid thing to feel, is nothing. Or, I mean, there's so many ways you could feel about this, right? So yeah, absolutely. Michelle.
Yeah, I think I actually noticed she gave us a little bit more of like what other people were feeling in the first page than even what she was feeling herself. Like she included like how Cindy was feeling sitting on the other side of the house, and how the firefighters maybe, weren't as close as they would have liked to be. She almost included more subjective writing. Even the like small amount that she included was actually like subjective writing of other people's feelings in that moment than her own.
Okay, absolutely true. Yes, sure, Shelley.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, the only thing I would add, I agree with the first two folks as well. I would just say that it does read like a report. And what I would say is that sometimes my own thought on that is that perhaps because it was so traumatic, this person is having a hard time accessing. It's hard to go there because it was so traumatic. Watching your house burn, it could be that that's why it's reading like a report.
I would say from my experience, Shelley, it's not.
Okay.
My experience is that people think that this is what they've also gotten terrible advice. Show, don't tell, right? Show me this, show me this, show me this. But I need some of your subjective writing. I need to be there with you. So just knowing, so the people who believe in show, don't tell, it's like, obviously I see a house burning down and I feel terrified and sad, right? But really, do you? I don't know, right? So we were talking about that with Gregory's excerpt. So I think it's more a writing issue. Obviously, if Leslie were here, Leslie could tell us. Anita?
Yeah, I didn't feel gripped by it at all. I was just horrified that she didn't even say any. I mean, I have all these questions. I mean, the last sentence.
Yeah.
I admired and appreciated their thoroughness. For God's sake, this is her house.
Anita, I was like that. Your cats are handed to you in 2 towels. What did that make you feel?
Exactly.
So much.
I mean, maybe you were numb, like Wendy says. You can say, I just held them and I was numb. I couldn't process this. I didn't know what to do. Where could I put them down? Should I hold them? Should I, put us there with you? And then we buried them 7 years later.
I mean, the first thing I was shocked at was that her daughter and the dog were just put in the car, and then she came back later to check on them. And, she was a bit upset because she didn't know what was going on. But that's her daughter. Wasn't she scared for her safety? I was just horrified by the lack of emotion that, she did.
And we don't know. So there is some subjective writing in here, honestly, but it's not sincere subjective writing. I was amazed at their thoroughness. I mean, that's subjective writing, but I don't really believe it. Like, that's what you're thinking as your house is burned out. They're so thorough, right? And so we need sincere subjective writing, because there is more subjective writing here. There is some. Trish.
Yeah, I sort of, for me, it sounded a bit, when I was listening, it sort of sounded like enter stage right, in comes this guy, in comes this guy, then out goes this guy, out goes that guy, then this happens. And then now I began to worry whether we would be held responsible for the fire and the damage to the house. I mean, I would be shitting myself if I thought I was responsible for that damage at the house. And really terrified of what was going to come. And I'm with you all the way with the cats. I mean, animal lover or not, being handed your dead animals and then just thinking, oh, we buried them a little bit later. It just seems. What I really wanted to say actually was, thanks to a suggestion that I received last week, I bought a book that I'm reading, and I'm noticing how much time we spend in something that's just happened to really live it. And I'm finding here I couldn't live any of it. It just was bang, bang, bang. And I was imagining to myself, thank God there aren't more people to talk about, because it would have been really busy,
Yeah.
So I just found it was just a lot to take in at the same time without actually living through it.
We're going to talk a little bit more once I get through the comments. A little bit more. We're going to come back to what Trish said. But for now, again, I think I said at the beginning of today's class that I could almost say to everyone, you're remembering your life on the page. Do you feel it? That is not what a good scene is, right? So you have to get away from that. This is my challenge as a memoir writing teacher. Someday I'm going to teach fiction and no one will have this issue because no one will have memories. I'm just joking. I love being a memoir writing teacher. Noah.
Hi. So there's a marketing teacher who I know who has you do a typograph, like a Myers-Briggs, but she has it for her own system. And it's not to figure out who you are. It's to call shotgun and who you want people to see you as, because you have a very small window of time to declare yourself. And I noticed the worry about will we be responsible for the damage of the house. For me, that was the only piece of really subjective writing that I saw that called shotgun on. Like, my whole pie chart for this person is my whole house is burning down. And the thing that I have chosen to tell you I care about is I might be on the hook for this damage. And so that builds in my mind probably the wrong idea of this person's character, because we haven't really. So yeah.
So take Myers-Briggs before writing a memoir.
Well, no,
that's not what you're saying. I hear you.
No, I'm sorry. It's just like that. It's just she says she just picks out seven strengths and says pick one of these and make sure that your audience thinks of you as this one and not these other ones. And so that sort of which subjective point of view should your audience be getting from you, and make sure that you say that first, because if that's all they read of you, that's all they'll think of you. We don't think about each other complexly enough to go, there was probably more that she was thinking about than just the worry. But this is all the evidence that I have, because you didn't tell us more of the things that were going on inside of you. So tell us your character by telling us what was going on.
Okay, good. We're going to stop. Three more. We're going to stop at Melinda. No more hands, guys. Just so, because I want to get to talking about how to fix this. John, Corey, and then Melinda. John.
So I had this, I ran this psychedelic clinic for a few years, and the patients would have their experience and would tell you the story. And so they're the author. I'm essentially the reader in this little analogy. And the thing that I always sort of focused on was, how did that make you feel? That's the subjective experience in this. And in this last story, so that goes back to the previous story. Now in this story, this person feels almost detached and dissociated And that's a
we
very
don't really know that though, because I'm not. I feeling detached is actually feeling something. That would be a different write on this. Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
That was my take on it. This is a person who's experienced this traumatic situation and is saying, not a big deal.
I read detachment very differently. You have to create the feeling of detachment, and that for me hasn't happened here.
Well, dissociation may be a better way to put it. So this is a person who's telling you this.
John,
I've seen this so many times.
Yeah, John, you're analyzing this from an expert of something you used to do, but your average reader is not going to do that. They need to be told. They need to actually read it and actually feel that she is disassociated.
I didn't feel detachment when I read this, and that is the goal, to create a feeling. I'm sorry to cut you off, Tanya. Go. Yes.
Yeah, no, so it's just like no reader is going to be reading and analyzing it like you have done that, looking at it from a psychological point of view. We want to feel what she's feeling, and to do that, you need to tell the reader how you are feeling and put them inside your head, so they understand that you have totally disassociated, you are totally numb, and this is not coming through.
I've read disassociation on the page, and it feels very different than this, right? I have. So, and I've just done this for so long that I know you guys like to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? But this is a lack of understanding what needed to go into the scene. I actually don't think this writer was disassociated. I think this writer didn't know how to put the actual emotion they were feeling into this page. So, all right, Corey and then Melinda, and then we're going to talk about how to fix this. Because there's a concept I want to get into.
I think there's a tendency, at least I did it, I've done it, where I assume, I experienced these things, so of course I felt this way. But if you don't say it, the reader has no way to know it. Like, I think we just assume, so we don't add in the subjective point of view because of course, and we just overlook it. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. Yeah, it feels exactly.
Like you just assume the person gets it because you experienced it. You know what? You know what?
Yeah, it's not always what you think. Exactly. That's the importance of subjective writing.
Corey, coming up with assumption is really important. Never let somebody who's experienced a same experience that you're writing about, never let them read it, because they will fill in what's missing because they were also there. Get somebody who was never there to read it, because but I don't understand, because you assume that the reader will know because you're filling in all the blanks in your head. The person who was with you is also filling in all the blanks because they were there, but you assume that the reader knows, and they don't.
Exactly. So that's a reason to not get your partner to read your stuff. If your partner lived through the events, your partner has a very different point of view and will fill in the blanks and will often criticize your point of view because that's not what happened to them. Well, it's your point of view that you're telling in the story. So be very careful about getting people who actually know the story to read your work. Get strangers to read your work. Melinda, and then I want to talk about one other concept that no one has picked up on, though Trish was close. Melinda.
I think it's kind of just piggybacking on what Corey was saying, but I think that we've rehearsed these stories and events in our heads and our hearts over time, that we get bored of our own stories. And I think that's why it's difficult to write subjectively. So I'm really interested to hear what your advice is on how to fix this.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's difficult to write subjectively. I hear you. I definitely hear you. But I tell people that is the art of memoir writing. That's the art. That's your voice. So, and it doesn't have to be always insightful. And, you just have to make me feel something. And it can be as simple as like being really, terrified to hold your dead cat. I mean, that's that's the worst part for me. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't have to, don't get stressed out about this and think that every sentence has to be this profound, introspection on what's happening. Look at other books. Look at other books at the subjective writing and see what narrative voice you like and see what they're doing, right? So don't be stressed out by this. So yes, the subjective writing is huge. The bigger problem even with this scene is that they don't know why the scene exists. Right. So as Trish was saying, it's like this happened and this happened and this, it feels like a report, I think is what Trish said. This and this and this and this. That is not, this is the big concept I want you to take away. Because you guys all got subjective writing. The big concept is this scene. Every scene in your book is a plot, is a brick that's creating plot for you. And the way it creates plot for you is that something must happen. Now, a little bit of everything, nothing happened. Or a description, also nothing happened. But I want you to start thinking of your scenes in terms of what actually happened that you want your reader to remember. There can be a few things, a few related things, or there can be one thing. So how would you, I'm only going to take 3 answers because we're running slow on time here. And this is a hard question, so I'm probably not going to get more than 3 answers. How could you rewrite this in terms of something happening? One thing that my reader is going to remember. So your reader will read all of it. When you read a book, you've read a chapter and you put it down. You can tell your brother, your sister, your partner the next day what happened in that story. Right? And a chapter is much longer than this, which is 2 pages. So this is like, I don't know what happened. Well, the woman's house got burned down. Right? Yeah, that happened. Yeah, but after that, okay, so her house burned down and what? Well, her house burned down. And she thought, so any suggestions for how to do this? Only 3 people. So I'm going to go to Mary and Noah, and if someone else raises their hand. Mary.
Okay, ask me the exact question again.
I love that you raised your hand without knowing the question. What confidence.
So you kept talking and my brain went in a different direction.
Okay, good. So how would you rewrite this? So okay. Once I've read it, I know what to take away from this scene.
Okay, because I started rewriting it and that's when I got lost. All right.
Good.
I would actually start with something like, I stared at the fireman and the 2 wrapped towels in his arms and started to cry as he handed me my dead cats.
Okay.
And then I would go on.
You'll start there, but how are you? So how are you going to make it? So yeah. So how is that going to fix the takeaway for me? Just cutting out a few paragraphs at the beginning, or help me understand why that would fix
I
it.
would then weave it into everything that came in front of him. So the dead cats would be the catalyst. Because to me, that is the most emotional piece of this. They got everything out, but the cats, because they hide in the back.
Yep, exactly. That is see, I wanted you to follow up and make sure.
Yeah, because
so
then I would leave it in and go back to the fire. Yeah.
What actually happened? Our house burned down, and we lost our 3 beloved cats. So that is what what this scene is about before you write it. It's not our house burns down and the firemen come and then, right? What happens that day is we lose everything, but what really hurts is the loss of our cats, right? So if that's why your scene exists, you're going to write it in a very different way. Does that make sense? So what I want you guys to do is think about why your scene exists before you write it. It is not to live through the moment when you lost your house and every little thing that happened. Excellent. Well, yeah, perfect, Mary. Noah.
I was also going to go with the cats just because you had called that out.
Yeah.
It feels like we should be able to keep score, essentially, as my understanding of how you're describing scenes is we should be able to tell what was at stake and did you win or lose it by the end of the scene. And so if the end of the scene is I lost my cats, then the beginning of the scene needs to be I have my cats. I love my cats. My cats
or I'm
always
looking
run and
for
hide.
my cats. And then it turns out I find them that they didn't survive. Yeah, exactly. So this is what I call writing to the main event. If you know the reason your scene exists is that you're going to discover that your cats didn't make it, you start your scene by looking for your cats, and your whole scene exists to discover. Now, that doesn't mean you can't watch the house burn down, right? But when your fire starts, your first thought is, where are my cats? So you could walk past the firefighters, you can see some of this stuff, but you're walking past the firefighters and you ask them, have you seen my cats, right? So now you can have lots of little things happening. Still, but it changes your reader's appreciation of the scene. They know why the scene exists. Jeanette.
I think some sort of revelation, whether it's the cats or not. There was one mention that all of this happened in 10 minutes. My life went up in smoke in 10 minutes. Some aha moment that she absorbs. Either
that would
before
also work. I mean, we still want to clean it up a little bit, though. We want to lead to that revelation at the end, right? So there's still a lot happening. That would be your main event, but now you need to rewrite and write toward your main event, which is a realization. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to give you guys, so I talk about this in my book. Writing to a main event solves this problem. Why does your scene exist? What is going to happen in your scene? Once you know that, you write toward it. This is such a good example of not writing toward the main event. And you use your subjective writing to help tell that story. So if it is about losing your cat, you're reflecting on that. Having good subjective writing that works will almost always get you there anyway, as long as your subjective writing is related to that, right? So it's really important to write to your main event. I'm going to give you a trick for getting there. This is a hard scene to write because it is like, well, I'm writing about my house burning down. That's what happened. But the problem is in writing, it's like every little thing that happened. So I don't really know what to take away from this. I don't remember much of it. It's like a lot of stuff happening. A trick for getting there is you don't have to do this with every scene, but scenes like this that feels like a lot does happen and you want to write about it, start by saying at the beginning of this scene, not chapter, the beginning of the scene, what do I want? Start with this formula to get to this. What do I want? What happens? And what do I realize? That will usually get you to a scene that has a reason to exist. And the what do I realize is optional. That's in parentheses. So what do I want and what actually happens? And what do I realize at the end? If you do that structure in a scene, it will almost always work. I would say it will always work if you do it correctly. Don't do it for all your scenes, but for scenes like this where a lot happens and you want to get it in there, this way of looking at your scene can really help. It's a way of writing toward the main event. Yeah, you always need for something to happen at the end of your scene and you need to write to it. Anything you want to add, Tanya?
No, not at all. I love everything that's been said. And what was going through my head is when you'd said, what would you tell like your brother about this? I would say, oh, their house burnt down. But taking from what everybody else said, you'd say their house burnt down and they lost their cat. Or, their house burnt down in 10 minutes and she lost everything. So you've got main events there that there's actually a story there. It's similar to that I went to Target. Our students often battle with when we say what happened. They said, but I just told you I went to Target. And but what happened? I just told you the house burnt down. I know, but what do you want me to remember out of this? What do you want me to remember?
You're not even going to tell them the story of Target. You're not going to, unless there was something big that happened at Target, and you're going to lead up to that, right? Like I don't know, the car hit us in the parking lot, right? So we were at Target the other day, and you'll never believe it. This woman comes up, and everything is leading up to the fact that you're going to get, your car bashed in the parking lot. That's how we tell stories.
And you're going to take out the events that don't matter. I had a student who just wrote this really emotionally affecting scene. It was a very short scene. Remember, you don't have to write really long scenes. Hers was a short scene of her having a dance with her husband on their anniversary. And this would be the last time she would ever do that because he was dying. She knew that, he knew that. And it was really beautifully done. But in that scene, dancing to that music, there was this little paragraph about, well, he went, so-and-so took my son to tennis, and then I went to the shops to get the dinners, and I went and organized, and I'm like, took it all out. And I said, why do you, the reader doesn't need to know all of that. Just put them in that scene. This is about you and the dance, and this was your last dance of your anniversary, 24 years. It's the last one. The reader doesn't need to know that you went to the shops to get food and you set the table and any of that. That just takes away. That's right.
It's all these memories. Does that make sense what Tanya's saying? It's so important. If you know why your scene exists, you're going to get rid of the irrelevant memories. Another way to do this is to say, you know, when I see the house burning down, the first thing I think is my kids, right? Do you find your, then I think of the cats. So you can get multiple things in here, but that's a story you're telling. Or I'm frozen. I can't move. Did I cause this? The whole scene could be you freaking out and thinking it's your fault. That could be the scene. Right? It really depends on you. I can't tell this writer what their scene is about, but I need to know, right? Before the writer writes it. So Michelle and Noah, and then we're going to go on to the last excerpt, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to go stay for Q&A. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know what who wrote the next excerpt, right, Sarah? Okay.
All right. So, something I'm thinking about while I'm going back to something I've been mulling over the last week since our last class was you had made a comment the last time of like, if you can narrow down to 20 of your most important scenes, like if you can get your plot down to those 20 most important.
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
I did not say that,
okay.
Michelle. But finish your thought, and I'm sorry to cut you up. Yeah.
Maybe Tanya said, someone had said like, if you distilled it all
not
down.
scenes. No, Wendy said that, but not
in
how
a different
you're
context.
explaining it.
Okay.
Not the way I'm explaining, not the way you're explaining it. Exactly.
So, anyway, I've been trying to like understand my plot of like, what are those most critical moments? And so what
are we talking about your book, Michelle? Let's
no,
go to the Q.
No, I'm talking about this one.
Okay. Good.
When coming back to this scene and thinking about like how the point you're making about like what's the point of this in your story is like, how do we make sure that you really fit that into the plot all the way? Like, why does this story exist in your whole plot versus just having a story in there just to have it there? And maybe sometimes it's okay to just have a story there to have it there. But that's what I've been kind of thinking about while we've been talking about like, what's the point of the scene? It's like, how does it truly fit in like the plot of the book?
That's quite complex, hey Wendy, because we go through so many to get to what you to answer what your question. We go through so many worksheets and things that people. It starts with the premise. It starts with the global structure. There's so many levels to get to that. But Wendy, maybe you can answer that.
Yeah. So Michelle, I did not say you can only get 20 events. I said the way we help our clients figure out global structure is we force them to say, if you only got 20. And why do I do that? Because I want a sense of what I need that information to help them figure out, or Tanya needs that information to help them figure out where their chronological timeline begins. Because I know what matters to them. So I can start to see where their search is. So I'm like, oh, search starts here. If I get 20 events, that's what it's for. So if you want to do that exercise to know what matters to you, fine. Now, in terms of like only choosing scenes that advance the plot, I actually don't teach that. And the reason is, I think to write a good memoir, you need to pick in every chapter the most emotional moments, the most important, within reason, right? So first of all, you figure out your premise and you figure out your present day timeline. Then you, in a rough way, figure out the chronology for each chapter. Once you've done that, pick the most, so you figured out the chronology for chapter 3. What are these scenes that you're going to populate this chapter with? What are the emotional moments, not from anything in your life, but you have a premise for your book. So within reason, what are these emotional moments? You're going to write a good book if your scenes are these moments a reader wants to live through with you. Now the task of your transitions is to connect them, right? That is how I suggest you write a book. So a lot of people are worried about the wrong thing at the wrong step. Such as, does this scene go in my book? Does it support my premise? You're asking yourself the wrong question. If you've done the steps up to that point, your question is this scene emotionally affecting, and is this a moment a reader wants to live through with me? And your transitions will do the work to turn this into a story. I really suggest asking yourself the right question at every step, and it will keep you from going in circles, because the problem I see, which is a much bigger problem with people we work with, is they say, oh, I love this scene, but I don't know if it supports my premise, and I don't know how it relates to the scene before and how it relates to the scene after. Plus, if I talk about my father, do I have to introduce him in the previous chapter? And they like go in circles. and they never write their scene and they go crazy. And so I say, stop. Ask yourself one question at every step. And if you ask yourself the right question, your brain will not do that, right? Because this is a problem. This is a real problem that most people have. So the right question is this scene an emotionally affecting moment that my reader wants to live through with me? When deciding whether to include it in your chapter. Yeah? Ask yourself the right question, and it makes this whole process so easy. What?
Yeah.
What, Tanya? What did you say?
No,
I missed it.
I agree, because like you can't tell, like, if this would probably be something that would be in her book if it's in the chronological timeline of her book, and if it's got something to do with I'll keep quiet.
Tanya,
complex.
you know why Tanya's like quit? Because Tanya knew she's going to open up this whole new topic, and Tanya's regretting it.
Yeah, no, I'm regretting it. Stopping.
I know that feel. Okay, I hear you, Tanya. Okay, we'll go to Noah, and then we're going to read the last excerpt.
I just wanted to check a shortcut I'm using in fiction and see if you were like, oh God, don't use that for this. Which was that when picking a main event, one of the things we think a lot about are irreversible moments where, okay, we went forward, but now we'll not be able to go back easily.
No, never do that in memoir. Like you are like irreversible. This is something that, see, I see some people, they've like studied, because they didn't find memoir guidance. So they go to fiction teachers and they come to me and it's like, here's my W. I don't even know what it means. And I'm like, and they had disregarded all of the problems that memoir writers have. Right. And so I hear you, irreversible moment. It's possible when you can make stuff up, but when you're also all the other things you have to think about and you're trying to apply that to your life, no. We use different questions because it's such a different process to create what feels like a novel, create a story out of true events is a very different emotional, intellectual process than making stuff up, than starting with a blank slate and adding to the page, which is fiction writing. Memoir writing is so difficult because it's the opposite. You're pulling away until what's left is a story. And to get there requires different questions to ask. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you. I'm glad I asked because I was sure I had it.
And it looks the same. It should look the same. Now, more on the side of literary fiction is what your memoir should look like, not, commercial fiction, not super commercial fiction. Okay, good. Great question.
Can I just add there what Wendy and Noah with what coming up with all these, like we hear this all the time with what is the arc, and somebody else just brought up, what is this? How do I know where this will fit in? And the thing is that a lot of that comes, if you have a good structure, it comes in organically, that you don't actually have to think about it. It actually clears it up for you, having that outline. It comes out that you're so like, but where's my family background going to come in? Well, if it needs to, it will come in. There will be some backstory in the relevant place, and you haven't even had to think about it because it makes sense where it should go. And maybe it doesn't come in, but it's not something you have to really think about and plan. If it's meant to go in the way that the outline is structured, it will come in, and you don't have to overthink it. It comes in organically.
So stop reading advice to fiction writers. I really mean that, because it'll freak you out. And your book, we get you there in a different way, in a way that works, given that this is the opposite of fiction writing. You're working from the inside out. It's like the inside out version of fiction writing. Really, Laura and Noah, are these super related to what we're talking about? Or can you save it to the Q&A?
I think so.
Go for it, Laura. Laura has, yeah.
I just, even on top of Noah, thinks that then would an irreversible moment be a time anchor?
No, it's something, it's not. No. And I don't try and use this is not that. This is not translating Spanish to English and finding the same word that with a different, it is looking at your book in a different way with different concepts. So we're not looking for the translation. We're looking for an entirely new concept that doesn't exist in the vocabulary of fiction writing, because you're getting there in an entirely new way. Yeah. Okay, good. So you guys know I'll stay and answer all questions. Let's do the last excerpt. I have good news for you, Sarah. I wanted to do an excerpt where everything is working. And I kid you not, I made a few tweaks. You did have an implied time anchor that I took out. I took it out. So, because it was so small, I wanted you guys to feel what it's like when it works. So now I want you to read this and I want you to analyze why Sarah got these concepts right. That might be even harder. You probably couldn't have done this at the beginning of class, but based on what we've talked about, the way it's terrible at this point. Tanya, I'm sure is the same at this point of doing this. When someone gets it right, I'm very excited, but I'm also going, and they avoided this mistake and this. That's kind of how I analyze things now. I mean, I'm always very excited, right, Tanya? But it's kind of like they avoided this problem and this problem and this problem and this problem. So I want you to look at Sarah's writing.
We rejoice with when people have really worked hard and they got it right.
Yes.
And we absolutely love it.
So I want you to analyze this using the concepts that we've talked about. Why is there's transition writing into a scene? Why is the transition writing working? Now we're not going to read all of it. We did cut it off. I did cut it off, Sarah. I think it's 2 pages. It was a bit longer. Why is this working? Why does it feel different than the other excerpts we've read? Yeah? Who's my reader?
Lynn Fellows.
Lynn. Where's Lynn?
I'm here.
There you are, Lynn. Unmute and you actually did unmute and read these 2 excerpts for us. Let me give you the slides here. Hang on. Wait. Oh yeah, this is it. Okay, good. I'm on the right page. Yes,
yeah.
Go for it. Made a few tweaks. Sorry, I hope you're okay with tiny line edits. Okay, go for it, Lynn.
Dara kept emailing me to ask more about the non-teaching related things we had talked about. I remember that being the first time I felt some discomfort, just a sense that something was off. Since then, when students sent me excessive emails, my hackles go up immediately. But back then, I couldn't put my finger on what exactly was wrong, and I liked her childlike enthusiasm, her love of Talmud. They were delightful to be around. At that point in the relationship, did I also like that she liked me? It was good ego feed. Over the next couple of weeks, personal emails continued to come in, sometimes couched in professional matters. She loved to be at the next class and a lot of coordinating questions. What she did in Toronto, and by the way, where exactly did I grow up there? How much the New Hope class had helped her in an interview and what she talked about. Shortly after that first car ride, Dara asked me if we could take a walk to talk about boundaries. I think it was then that she first confessed her love for me and tried to convince me that I should be in a relationship with her. I'm not sure what table we're sitting at, she began. The teacher-student table, the friendship table, or another table. We're sitting at the teacher-student table, Dara. There are no other tables here. There is a school policy.
Next page.
But Tama dated a student, and she is the dean. I'd never negotiated a situation like this and wanted so much to let her know that a relationship with me was an impossibility, and also to avoid shaming her or humiliating her for having been vulnerable with her feelings. This could go so wrong. I know she did, and I told her at the time that I didn't think it was a good idea. That's why there's a policy. It was created after that. I have so much love to give. I know, Dara, and you're terrific. You'll find someone to share it with. Do you have a partner? Dara, whether or not I have a partner isn't the point. There's a policy, and I believe in that policy. In fact, I was in a long-term relationship at the time, but I had kept my personal life very separate from my professional life, and I did not intend changing that for the sake of this conversation. Nobody at the college knew that I was in a relationship, not because of homophobia. Several of the faculty were in same-sex relationships, but because I had a deep need for strong boundaries between those two worlds. My personal life felt, well, personal. I did not intend to change that for the sake of this conversation.
The scene goes on a little bit, but let's talk about why this works. Michelle, do you want to talk about why it works?
Yeah, the transition, I really like the transition that it like included a little bit of the foreshadowing of like my hackles go up now when this happens, because it kind of gives you that feel of like something's not right. I know that now that I didn't know that then. And it leads you into this scene that now you should have a little bit of suspense about, of like, oh, something inappropriate's about to happen that I should be, wary of. And then I also like that she didn't go crazy about like describing the restaurant they were sitting in or anything. We didn't need to know all of that. They're just having a conversation at a restaurant, and that's all we needed to know.
We're going to come back to the transition writing in a second. My favorite thing about what you said, Michelle, is that we didn't need the rest, or it's not the restaurant. Where are you, Sarah? Where are you? You can unmute yourself, Sarah. We might talk to you.
I'm on a walk.
On a walk, yeah.
Yes, we don't get a ton of description. Sometimes description matters if it's going to create an emotional feeling, if it's going to set up your scene. But you don't need it. You really don't. So many people feel like, oh, I got to describe this place. Sometimes it matters. If it's a place I have no clue what it's like, or if that description is going to create this emotion in me. But yeah, that's my favorite thing about what Michelle said, is that we just don't need it. It doesn't have that problem of all this stuff that Sarah remembers, right? So Sarah, so I'm going to go back to Sarah and ask Sarah a question in a second. I want to hear what Trish has to say.
Yeah, I loved it, but I don't know whether I'm saying this right or whatever, but I knew from the whole thing that we were focusing on those two. It was like nothing else really mattered. It was like, how is this going to go? What's going to happen here? How is she going to set these boundaries and still, it was really, for me, it was like, there was no talk of she moved the salt to the left, she drank out of a glass, she took a seat back, she looked at me strangely. It was just, there they were, and I was right there with them, like, as if I was, Thank
you for not including all of that, Sarah. Yes, like all of these little actions and gestures. I see people do that all the time because they don't know what to put in between their lines of dialogue. We just don't need it. Someone picks up a cup and, it's like, we just don't need it. I wanted to ask Sarah, and then we'll go to Corey. Like, how did you write this scene? How did you talk to us about this? And I have more things to say about it, but do you mind telling us? How do you think of your story? How do you write your book? Any advice, I guess, is what I'm asking you.
Advice to the person I'm writing down seriously advice from. I tried to recount the conversation. I tried to take out things I thought might be boring. I tried to figure out like how to condense the one paragraph, that first paragraph, the second one over the next couple of weeks. I was trying to think about how to condense all those things without telling all of them, which is how I got into the, and a lot of coordinating questions just in parentheses.
The details are great. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was looking for detail. I was trying to figure out what would I want to read.
Interesting. And now hopefully you guys have a better idea of what a reader wants, right? Reading things that aren't quite working, that still need concepts, and reading things that are. Now, you may, again, subjectively, you might like someone else's writing better than, right? But this to me is writing that works, right? This is writing that I'm not confused. I have an emotional experience. I feel like I'm there, right? This is writing that works. So how much of your writing should look like Sarah's? It should look nothing like Sarah's. The concept should be applied, but the voice should not be the same, right? So I don't try and imitate Sarah's voice, right? But understand the concept. One thing, I'll see if Corey points it out, maybe Yes, but there is this sense, I think a lot of writers read books and they think that good writing is flowery and has lots of details. And and they get bad advice like show, don't tell. And so you show me all this stuff happening. That's not good writing. Yeah, this is good writing, right? And you're applying the concepts we've talked about and made it your own. Tanya, and then we're going to go to Corey, and then I want to talk about the first few paragraphs. Unless you have anything to add, Sarah. Sarah, you're the one person who can jump in and interrupt at any point if you want to respond to what anyone says, by the way. Okay.
Thank you.
Tanya? Tanya, you're muted.
When I first started, I wanted to write like Alexander Fuller. She's also from Rhodesia. She's written 5 books. Let's Go Down to the Dogs Tonight. And I bought every book she had, either secondhand or found it at the library, and I devoured them. And the ones that I owned, I'm like, I'm gonna write like her. You can't write like anybody else. Don't try and write like anybody else. Everybody has a different narrative voice. You can read a lot of books in the styles that you like, and that you'll probably start emulating, but it'll always be your own voice.
Yeah. Be sincere on the page and your narrative voice will come out naturally, really. Some people are really funny. We have people who come to the mastermind and they're so funny and their writing is so serious. And I'm like, well, give me some of that. Don't be afraid of that. Put yourself on the page is like the hardest advice to follow. Make your writing subjective and sincere, and you will have a strong narrative voice. Yeah. Corey.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take a break.
So,
tell me.
Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, but the point of this story is that she's committed to her school and her profession and the kind of the ethics of that above relationship, at least this relationship, right? And it's told, and the scene shows us that. Like,
you
that's
might be
where
even overthinking this a little bit. Like, you're not wrong, but I think it's simpler than that. So I'm glad I want to talk to what you said. It's really, why is this working? Because Sarah's telling us about Dara. That's it. Like, it's like, so whatever, that's Sarah's choice, right? But this is like not like the other excerpts we're reading, right? It's so simple that it's setting up it's setting up what this scene is about. Yeah, it is about ethics, but it's also about, Dara just keeps emailing me and I just don't know what to do until one day, enter scene. Right? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's like, what is the point you're making? And now that what is the point that you're making with your scene? Well, this Dara woman will not leave me alone, right? That's the point. Yeah. Until one day I sit down, Dara sits down with me and we blah, blah, blah. And something happens. Dara insists. And I say no, right? Basically. So yes, you're absolutely right, Corey. But I don't want anyone to go too deep with this because it's almost as simple as just what's the point? This Dara woman won't leave me alone. Don't go too deep. I mean, go really deep, but I don't want you guys to feel intimidated by like, oh, and I have to have this deep meaning. The scene is something is going to happen with Dara, and so we set up Dara in the paragraph, or we set up relationships. There are different transitions that could have worked here, by the way. This isn't the only transition. Sarah could have talked about relationships and how Sarah's not in a place to get into a relationship right now. I'm like, that could be it. Or Sarah could have talked about Sarah's long-term relationship, long-distance relationship. They're different ways, and it still would have been relevant. So there are different ways. This isn't the only way into it, but it's relevant, right? That's what I love. It's 2 paragraphs of relevant transition writing. And one thing so what you don't want to do in your transition writing is give me that time anchor or that implied time anchor. What Sarah has done instead, which I love, is I get a snippet of the personal emails. What did she do in Toronto? Instead of saying, one day I get an email and I open it. Expectation for a scene. Do you see how cleverly this was done? Like when you start to analyze, I'm analyzing for all the problems that Sarah managed to avoid, right? And that's a great way to do it. It doesn't bore me. I get these tiny snippets without the expectation for a scene. See how that could have gone wrong? And it didn't. Like one day I get a letter from Dara. I don't get that. Over the next weeks, I get these emails. I get these questions. What did she do? What she did in Toronto? Where did I grow up? How much? So I get these great details without the expectation for a scene. That's why I'm really admiring this, because it's hard to do, right? I don't feel bored by this transition writing. I am getting great details without giving me a specific point in time, which creates the expectation for a scene. I don't get last Thursday at Target. Sorry, I had a tiny little one about one day I get a letter. And that's the sentence I deleted, by the way, right? It didn't drive me crazy, Sarah, but I did delete one. I made a little tweak here. Very tiny. The rest of this is all Sarah. Yeah, Trish.
Yeah, it's just sorry. It's just that what I picked up out of it was we really see very, very quickly, very easily in such a short passage that Sarah has almost got to negotiate her way away from Dara. She's very insistent. She's very intense. She's sending a lot of email. She wants to know a lot. And not only does she not take the hint, I'm in a long distance relationship, but then she sort of also mentions a table, like, what is this table set up? Is this an intimate thing? Are we going to get a little closer here? And then, really saying no to her. So I took it as if, thank God there's a policy that I can lean on, because she's not taking no very easily, whether or not she cared about the ethical side or not. It was a good tool to lean on.
So but I did care about the ethical side.
Okay.
Which I think I say in there that I agree.
Possibly. I could have zoned out in my own world, but I just thought there was a very clever interpretation of what her energy was like around you and what you were wanting to do,
So, here's why I don't like to get into the deep analysis of what this means, because everyone's going to have a different idea. And that's amazing. That means Sarah did what was necessary to create this scene. Trish should have a different interpretation and take away something different, right? That's amazing. It happens when you do everything right. So let's talk about what is right here. Let's talk about the problems that Sarah managed to avoid, and then we're going to take a bathroom break, and then we're going to come back for Q&A. Yeah? So quickly, transition writing that doesn't create the expectation for a scene, transition writing that sets up the scene I'm about to get into, subjective writing. We have a scene that has a reason to exist. It's not. So here's how the scene that I would have gotten that was wrong would have been other professor walking by at the same time, describing what was for lunch, thinking about what you have to do in the next hour, all these, right? All these other things that what I'm seeing is, and Sarah managed to take all these things out and not to clog up the scene with these other things I just don't need. It's writing to the main event. And if you were to tell someone, I read this excerpt, would it be very easy to tell what you read? You remember it. You know exactly why this scene exists. This is when you get the structure right, when you get these concepts right, your reader remembers it, they have an emotional experience, they're transported. It just works, right? You guys are all good writers. You really are, but if you don't get these concepts, no one will know what a good writer you are. Tanya, and then we're going to take a bathroom break.
Okay, so I just wanted to add two things to this. One is that she did a really good job when you were talking about.
Sarah likes to be called they. If you guys don't, that's out of respect. Yeah.
They did a really good job of describing what happened. And Wendy said that she took out a one-time anchor that they did. And can you imagine reading this? And Sarah, you had done, one day I got this email and Dora said this, the next day I got this, another scene this, the next day I got an email and I did this, and that would have just bored the reader. But you really did a good job here in how you described it. And I just had a student who did that in, I think, 4 scenes of each time he went to this therapist. And every therapist session was about something different. She would ask him, you know, do you like friends? How many friends do you have? Do you like people popping by? The next one was about, do you like to have look at people and everything? And I said, you're going to bore your reader. They're going to totally zone out. Put that into, because he was able to use transition writing for this, and he did it. I've showed him how to do a very similar job to what you've done here, Sarah, is actually put it in so that it still affects you and you actually get the whole picture of what was going on over those weeks. And you did it perfectly. You can't always, Wendy and I have a thing, but I'm not going to go into it, is that you can't put everything into transition writing. Everybody always thinks that if we say, no, that doesn't fit in here, you go, oh, I'll just put it in transition. No, you can't have a scene of that. I'll just put it into transition writing. Transition writing is not an information dump to put everything that doesn't go in your scenes. Be very careful of that.
It's not you remembering or telling us a bunch of information. No one cares about the information about your life, guys. I hate to tell you, the information is another thing we say, Tanya, right? Information isn't interesting. It's just not where you graduated. And Sarah didn't tell us, you know, and I have a PhD for, I don't know, like, right. We didn't get any of that. Maybe elsewhere if it was relevant, but I don't have all this stuff, how long I've been studying there, where we just don't need it. Sorry to cut you off, Tanya. Yes.
So the other thing was that Sarah, very little happened. In this whole thing, very little happened. There's very few things actually happening, yet so much happens. And that's what I love about it. We remember exactly what happened, even though very little is happening, because most of it, the way she has structured it, because it works and because it's clear. And like Wendy said, in my book, Wendy only discovered my height, I think it was in chapter, I don't know, it was chapter 5 or something of my book, only because I had put it in and it was very relevant to this actual scene. But otherwise she was like, what? Because I didn't start off my book going, you know, I'm from here and this is my, you know, this is like, I have a PhD and I have an honors in this and this is my height and everything. Only put in things where it's relevant. Otherwise it's just like, the reader
just
goes,
information about you.
Why did she do that?
It feels so counterintuitive, right? It's like, they need to know who I am. They need to know where I'm from and where my degree is from and where I grew. Little by little. Imagine if you're talking to someone for the first time on an airplane and they did that to you. And my name is this, and I'm married to so-and-so, and I live here. And when I was a kid, it's like, whoa, you know, it's kind of the same thing. Give us the information that is relevant. Let your scenes determine the relevance, right? Start with those scenes and put this right.
Sarah, your description, your character description of yourself also comes out throughout your book. And in this, I got it that Sarah likes to stick to those rules, that she finds them important. That's a bit of character description there. Instead of going, I'm a rule stickler. I like, you know, how do you put that? She's just shown us through this that she is that kind of person, so we understand who she is.
Yes. Okay. Well done, Sarah. And I will say this, Sarah's not a better writer than you guys. Sarah has got the concepts right. And I really mean that, right? Get the concepts right and you will get feedback like this from me. Yeah. And from Tanya. So it really is. Yeah, I really will say what I said at the beginning of the first day of the mastermind is really that I genuinely believe that you are a good writer, but you may not have the concepts yet. And you have to get the concepts and it will transform your writing. It really will.
What a great class. Thank you to everyone, and especially you, Wendy. I'm so excited to learn all these new things.
Love spending time with you. Write to me, Kimmy, and I will see you guys. Yeah, take care, and I hope to see you in the future.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Moonshadow.
Thank you.
Bye.